Tia waiora, e te atua no tikaroria te whaari e tūnei, tēnā koe, te papa o waho nei tēnā koe, te mana whenua o tēnei rohi tēnā koutou, te honga mate ki te honga mate, haere, 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 te honga ora ki te tātou, te honga ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, ki ngā mā kina ki uta, ki mā taratara ki tai, e hi ake ana, te atakura, e teo, e hoka, e hauhu, te hei Māori. Ko te kaupapa mō tēnei rā, te kaupapa whakahirahira, ko te hauora Māori. Ko wai au I tuaki nei, ko Carmen Tamu Prata, tōku ingoa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for attending our session today. It's entitled He Waiu, He Waiora. The sustenance of life is mama's milk. And just a couple of objectives there that we're going to look at, exploring what indigenous knowledge around breastfeeding might look like for whānau Māori, and also looking at how we can be an advocate for breastfeeding when working with whānau. Just the next slide is a very dear friend and advocate for breastfeeding. His name was Dr. Leo Buchanan. He passed away in 2017. He was an inspirational teacher and an advocate for breastfeeding and for whāora Māori. He believed that breastfeeding can be used as a public health strategy to improve Māori child health, and that there's no other single public health measure in the first year of life that carries so much potential widespread positive outcomes for both children and adults as breastfeeding. And this next slide is depicting the signing of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which is our founding document here in Aotearoa. I just wanted to explain here an important figure. Dr. Truby King, he was a doctor that was living and working in Dunedin in the early 19th century, and his area of expertise was actually mental health, but he became interested in child health around 1907 when he took in some young babies in the area who were malnourished. He had some nurses working with him and had ended up setting up a maternity unit in Karatani, which is just north of Dunedin. And Dr. Truby King was instrumental at setting up the Plunket service, and also of developing Aotearoa's first artificial milks. And he made that up of lactose and cow's milk and water. So an important figure, and he thought that that was a way to address the high rates of child mortality at the time. Just explaining that the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative, which was developed in 2001 by the World Health Organization and the UNICEF organizational body, is a national initiative to look at increasing breastfeeding rates nationwide, and their ideas were around ensuring that babies had a good start in life and that they were breastfed for the first 6 months. So in the development of the initiative, there were 10 steps, a 10-step model, looking at things that could improve breastfeeding rates. Initiation of breastfeeding in maternity hospitals. So that's what we're using today, and also in Aotearoa. And there also has been concern around the marketing of formula internationally and in New Zealand, and so the international code of marketing of breast milk substitutes has also been set up to protect breastfeeding. Yeah, so in Aotearoa we've also got the National Breastfeeding Strategy that we also all look to at how we can best improve breastfeeding rates. And I looked at two phrases in that strategy that specifically talk about, or refer to peer support with whānau, and those the availability of high quality, consistent information delivered in appropriate and manageable ways is imperative to achieving breastfeeding goals. This should include information available to whānau and support people. And accessing breastfeeding support needs to be culturally safe, responsive, and reflects cultural diversity that can help address breastfeeding rates. So those are the two things that I thought related to your mahi here as peer supporters. Is breastfeeding a public health issue? Of course, it's very much a public health issue, in that there's lots of health issues that can be protected when babies are given a really good start in life with breastfeeding. And it's really important that we look in how we can not just promote breastfeeding, but also protect breastfeeding and provide really good support for the new mama, or the whānau as well. The next part I just wanted to talk about was the indigenous knowledge around breastfeeding and why it's important for the pepe and their mother. So from a traditional Māori perspective, the survival of whānau, hapu and iwi was really crucial for back then. All Māori babies in the pre-European times were all sustained through being breastfed, of course, because they didn't have formula. And breastfeeding was imperative in maintaining and sustaining the pepe's development and well-being of the generations ahead, really. A well-fed pepe reflected the health status of the whānau, hapu and iwi. And we know that through some of the whakatauki, or the proverbs, including there's one about that the land needs to provide sustenance for the coming generations. And it looked at, compared the sustenance from the land to the milk from a mother's breast. And we know that the Māori word for breast milk, which is waiora, literally means breast milk, but it also has a deeper meaning, spiritual meaning around life-giving waters. And this relates to the amniotic fluid, to spring water, and also breast milk, and recognises the life-giving and protective qualities of breastfeeding. Breastfeeding not only provides for physical nurturing of the pepe's needs, but also is an integral factor in meeting their spiritual and emotional needs. And another word for breastfeeding is ukaipo, links the pepe back to the protection given at a generational level. For example, the protection using antibodies that are passed from one generation to the next through whānau breast milk is cumulative. The love and the nurturing at the breast by a mother contributes to the emotional well-being and the potential of the pepe. In the act of breastfeeding the pepe, with the physical closeness, eye contact and length of time that a pepe spends at the breast maintains whakapapa through singing waiata and mōtitia or traditional chants. The well-being of the mother and pepe is a responsibility of the whānau and the hapu and the iwi. Breastfeeding is crucial in maintaining and sustaining health and well-being for the development of that pepe. And it's through the act of whakawhanaungatanga within the whānau hapu and iwi that ensure that the pregnant or breastfeeding mama was cared for by the collective and all her needs were taken care of. And she was seen as tapu and needed to be protected and supported in her ability to breastfeed. So breastfeeding was seen as a valued traditional practice, and the benefits were recognised in their practices, including that of wet nursing other mamas' pepes. So, while we know in today's context, their Māori health statistics reveal that we have got some challenges. Our people in the past, pre-colonisation, they were really healthy people and also robust. So just looking briefly at some of our atua, some of our goddesses. The first one, just briefly, is Papatuanaku, which is seen as Mother Earth. And also a really important one, and the first male entity was Hene Ahuoni, that she was seen as having the breastfeeding knowledge. She was also really important. So those atua expressed mana wahine, or the importance of woman in our traditional practices. And then just again looking at some of our reo, they reflect lots of wai, which is wairua and waiora, waiati, waimate, waimāori, and finally waiu, which is breast milk. So even when looking at our language, we see that breast milk is really important. I'm just looking at some of our traditional writings. It's obvious that breast milk was really important, and here there was a little karakia around asking for help with breastfeeding. So yeah, it was interesting. And looking at another way that they actually supported breastfeeding was the kapu, which is made of pounamu, and it's actually carved with, really looked like a hockey stick, really, with the bottom part sort of curved at the end. And women often wore them around their necks and through their ears, but also use them for, we know, for expressing breast milk, and also for teething pepe. So they have their own breastfeeding support tool there. And also I'm sure they knew about all the important things that help with breastfeeding. How can breastfeeding protect tauira Māori? Well, we know that breastfeeding can go a long way into protecting for a lot of our diseases that we have at the moment, for example, diabetes, and also things like it can prevent and protect against likelihood of family violence. So there's lots of really positive things that it can help with whāora Māori. And just here's some special terms that you may not know about. Whānau, which is sometimes referred to breastfeeding or to wet nursing. Wainga, which is the bonding. Miri, which is traditional Māori massage. And what we've been told from our kuia is often when the mama was breastfeeding, they would actually massage the baby's legs and arms to relax them, but also to actually identify some of their positive traits that they might use for the future. Te whare kohanga, which was a temporary purpose-built construction for birthing, that often the mama would birth in these places and breastfeed. And also something that you may already know, which is kiri te kiri, which is skin to skin. And we know all the positive things that happen with lots of kiri te kiri for mother and pepe and the whānau. And just introducing two aspects of Te Ao Māori that you may already know about, which is hapu wānanga, which is really a gathering of pregnant mama to talk about things around pregnancy and parenting, and also breastfeeding, and te whare pora, which is where people are weaving sometimes wahakura or baby sleep, safe sleep spaces. It is also a time when they can talk about breastfeeding and supporting breastfeeding. It's wahakura, which is a woven flax basket for pepe up to 5 or 6 months, and it's a traditional way of sleeping pepe. There's a picture of a wahakura. So I've just devised some aspects of communication that you might consider when working with whānau as a peer supporter, and looking at reflective practice and communication skills. Yeah, if you wanted to look at that. And just identifying some ways that we can be an advocate for breastfeeding when working with whānau. So just in closing the session with our karakia, kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tātou whare o I karate, me te aroha te atua, me te whiwhinga ko tahitanga, te wairua tapu, ake, āmene, kura.